Hello and welcome to the first Brewing Perfection webcast. I'm your host, Chris Simmons. In today's webcast, we'll discuss my background, the types of beers I like, what I'm about, and then at the end we'll talk about the winter porter that I made back in December of 2010. So, let's talk about my background. I've been a home brewer for over 20 years. I started back with a couple of friends in a small apartment. We started brewing mostly extract with some all-grain brewing. Since then, I bought a lot of different equipment, and I even made some equipment on my own. And I moved up to brewing all grain. So now I brew all grain in a 10-gallon brewing system that I built myself. So also in my background, I had lived in England back in college, so I spent about 3 months there. So I was able to taste the different beers that are made there. And unique there is every pub has different beers since pubs are owned by the local breweries. So you get to taste a lot of different beers that you would not be able to get over here. So I was able to taste many different types of beers or many different breweries. So also I lived in Germany more recently. I spent 3 months working for a company over there. So I was able to taste a lot of the German beers, and my favorite is the Bavarian wheat beer. I primarily lived in Munich, so I went to many beer gardens down in the Munich area. And like I said, the Bavarian Weiss beer, or the wheat beer, is one of my favorites. So let's talk a little bit more about the types of beers I like. So I like the English ale, most of the ales that are made in the British Isles. I've always seemed to like ales. Lagers I don't like as much. I'm not a big fan. I haven't made any of those. I've made a German Weiss beer, which is a wheat beer, which is also an ale, actually uses an ale yeast, so it's similar. And I like I said, different British beers, especially the brown ale and the stout. So let's talk a little bit about what I'm about. So I'm about making good beer, or actually making good beer better. So I like to make good beer, and I like to find out what I need to make better and continually making the beer better. But making great beer on your own is great, because instead of going to somewhere and buying it, you can make it, and maybe even make it better than some of the local or the beers that you can buy. So let's talk a little bit about the winter porter that I made in December of 2010. So I was doing a lot of recipe research on porters, and found that a lot of in the 1800s or even before, they're making a lot of porters with just all brown malt. And then in the 1817s, they moved to using black patent malt. It was invented back then in that time frame, and so a lot of brewers used more black patent malts, and some still use brown malt. So basically, my recipe is similar to that in the 1817s. So my recipe has pale malt mostly, with some black patent malt and a little brown malt. I think it gives a really good complexity to the taste using those malts and the brown malt. For hops, I use the Fuggle hop, which I really come to like. So I've used that also in the brown ale I made after the porter. So it seemed to be a very good hop. In my brewing process, was trying to do a 10 gallons for the porter, but had some problems with the sparge and had a mash that got stuck. And what happened was it took longer to sparge, and I only ended up with about 7 gallons. So with less yield, it actually turned out good, because the alcohol content was higher, I think about 7 to 8%, and the taste was much richer and more complex. So it came out really good. So let's open some here that I have, and we'll taste a little bit. going to pour some here. As you can see, it's fairly dark. Has a nice head. Nice big head. It's not overly carbonated. It's got good. I bottled I bottle conditioned it. So that means if you're not aware, that's basically doing these bottle conditioning is doing the carbonation in the bottle naturally by using the yeast that's left over and letting it eat. Basically, you use the yeast, you add sugar or corn sugar, and you basically can get a real. You can let it condition where a big brewery might infuse CO2, so it's not a natural process, but bottle conditioning is a natural process. And you see there's some breweries that do that, some that don't. The bigger breweries might not. So let's taste it. We got some. Has a good aroma. You can kind of smell like some chocolateness in there. Let's taste some. So it has a very deep, rich taste. You can really taste chocolateness and molasses and some coffee-ness. So, I mean, if you like dark coffee, this has that flavor to it. No real like strong aftertaste, no bad aftertaste, really good. So I'd say if you're looking to make something, especially during the winter, something like this porter would be good. And the alcohol content, I mean, you can taste it, sort of. You can tell that it's higher in alcohol than standard beers. And that's good during the winter. It keeps you warm. So, that's you may want to try making this porter. And it would be, like I said, good during the winter. I made it during the winter, and it tastes really good. Gives you something to do. And like I said, you use pale malt and some black patent and just a little bit of brown malt to give it that extra complexity and flavoring. So if you want to try it, go ahead and do it. It's a good beer to make. Yeah. And thank you for watching this webcast. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website, simmonsbrewing.com.